So today we're going to be making two different beers. I've got a Black IPA that I'm doing, followed by a milk stout or a sweet stout. I will post the recipes up, but here's my process and how I do things. So I'm heating up my mash water to 170 degrees Fahrenheit. That's so I can preheat my cooler. And while we're doing that, let's go ahead and crush some grains. So I got 15.5 pounds of grains in this Black IPA. So it filled up almost an entire 5-gallon bucket. But you see a nice even crush here, so I'm excited to mash in here. Don't know how long, as soon as our water gets up to 170 degrees. And actually I think I'm going to do more like 174 just to be on the safe side. My mash in temperature the goal is 164. Once I add all the grains, it should bring us down to 152 degrees. So we just wait now. So I got my temperature up to 174. It's now time to preheat my mash tun. So I'll be emptying all this water. I've got 5.15 gallons actually. Pouring that here in my mash tun. My goal is to hit 164 degrees and then we can add our grains. So I'm just going to close this up so it'll allow it to preheat. And we'll wait for 5 minutes and check on the temperature. I've hit 164, so it's time to add in the grains. I like to stir this as I'm adding the grains to avoid dough balls. So this will end up being the consistency of like really runny oatmeal. I'm making sure this is stirred very, very well, and I'm gonna let this sit for about 5 minutes and come back and check the temperature, make sure that the temperature equalizes. That's why I'm gonna leave it for 5 minutes, and then that'll be the beginning of our mash. We've got an hour-long mash on this. It's been 5 minutes, so I'm going to stir this up once more, and then I'm just going to check the temperature in a couple different spots and make sure it's unified throughout. So it looks like we're good. We'll just let this sit for another 55 minutes. So I got about 20 minutes left with the mash. So now's a good time to start heating up some sparge water. I usually aim for about 180 degrees with this one. It's been an hour, so I'm gonna drain this. I'm gonna make sure it's all clear, and we're still waiting for our sparge water to heat up, but this should take me a few minutes, so no big deal there. Set the grain bed. Now it's time to kind of put the wort back in without disturbing the grain bed. So if you take a look in here, what I do is I just put a piece of aluminum foil on the top. That way I can pour the wort in here and it won't go down in here and disturb the grain bed. So I got my sparge water heated up to 180. Now, the way I figure out how much sparge water I actually need is by using the fermenting buckets that got the markings on the side here. So I'm gonna pour my sparge water in here. I know I got 3.5 gallons of wort, so I know I need 3 gallons of sparge water to end up getting 6.5. So first I'll empty this into the fermenting bucket. And I know that's 5 gallons, so when I'm done, I know I'll have 2 gallons left. I'm gonna do a double batch sparge, so at first I'm only gonna do 1.5 gallons. While I'm sparging, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start heating up the wort that I've already collected so we can get the boil going sooner. So I'm going for 1.5 gallons in this. Let's see what we got here. It was only about 1 gallon, so I need a little more. Let's see what we got here. Nice, so that's about 1.5 gallons. I'm gonna mix this up so I can rinse it out, get more of the sugars out of it, and I'll have to reset this grain bed. I want a really, really good hot break, so I'm going to let this boil up pretty well. But to avoid a boil over, I typically just have a spray bottle full of reverse osmosis water, because when it starts to get all foamy like this, it can boil over really easily, as I sprayed some of it out of the kettle anyway. But this will just kind of keep the foam down, because it cools down the surface. This particular recipe calls for a hop addition of 1 ounce of Simcoe at 60 minutes. So this will begin our boil right here. Also, you can potentially get a boil over when you add hops as well, so I keep my water bottle ready. It looks like we are foaming up pretty good, but I don't think it's going to be a problem. This is our 15-minute addition. I've got 1 ounce of Cascade going in. And I'm also adding my wort chiller at 15 minutes. This is a 10-minute edition. This is an ounce of Citra. I had trouble finding Citra, so I couldn't find it in pellets, so I'm using hops here, like whole cones. And we'll be sure to get those guys mixed in pretty well. And our 5-minute edition, 1 ounce of Simcoe. Alright, so we got about 4 seconds left. You'll hear my timer go off. There we go, our boil is done, so I'll cut the gas. And we need to start sending some water through the wort chiller, so I'm just going to go turn on the hose real quick. And this should be pumping through here any minute now. Here we go. Now you'll actually be able to see the steam coming off of this bucket right here, because this water coming out, if I were to, you know what, I have a thermometer. Let me put a thermometer in here and see how hot it actually is. Because I'm not touching it. That'll definitely burn you. Looks like it's shooting up past 160. Yeah, it's about 160 degrees. So you definitely don't want to touch that. But I've got my thermometer here on the front. What I'm going to do every couple of minutes is, if you're using an immersion chiller, you want to kind of cycle this through, because it builds like a little pocket of cooler wort right around that. Also, you want to make sure this stays covered, because you want to avoid any type of bacteria falling into this as it's cooling, because once it gets to a certain temperature it can spoil your beer. So I'll keep this covered up. We'll let this run through. I'll let this get down to about 100 degrees. From there, I've got a 20-pound bag of ice that I'm going to use. I have to use a sump pump in the 20-pound bag of ice and recirculate ice water to be able to get this down to about 65, 70 degrees. So I'll let you know when we start doing that. Okay, so we got down to 100 degrees, and in order to get down to about 65, we got to use some ice here. So I got a 20-pound bag of ice and a sump pump. And also, I need a little bit of water to circulate through, so I'm going to get this going here. Now, one thing that you want to make sure of, before you plug in your sump pump, you want to actually make sure you are connected, because if not, you're connected to your wort chiller, because if not, water will come shooting out of here straight into the air, totally not going to help you out at all. I'm going to switch this tube over, one that fits my sump pump, and now we'll actually recirculate, I would say 33 degree water. So make sure that's on there nice and tight. Then we'll plug in our sump pump. And now we've got ice water flowing through. So what's going to happen here is we're going to be able to get this down to about 65 degrees. So what I'll do periodically is I'll still circulate my immersion chiller, but I'm also going to circulate this water. So I don't want to get pockets of the chilled water that's warmer than other parts of the water, so that's why I'll circulate it.